The land is given over by the coast to the Danites. They have Samson on their side. Things aren't going well for them. They're kind of sick of trying to not only get things to grow in a coastal area that they probably weren't used to planting, farming, all that kind of stuff there. So they come find an area that's easier to work with. Samson perhaps could have stayed behind and watched and done more battles, and everybody else is like, that's it, peace out, I'm out of here. I'm gonna go find something easier. That definitely could have happened, or Samson could have been done by this point, and they come up here. That's the Judges period, okay? So let's understand the Bible timeline a little bit. You have the patriarchal period, you have the beginning of time, okay? So we're past all of that, we're past the flood. We're now into they've sojourned out of Egypt, they've come in, you have Moses in the Exodus that happened, and then you have the conquest and the Judges. So we are in the conquest and the Judges period before we go into the Kings period, okay? So you can see Joshua leads the Israelites into Canaan about 1400 BC, and then they come into this area, and the area of the Judges begins. The Judges then are ruling, and this is when everybody's trying to settle into their land. Judges chapter 19, I read the first part of it to you, but let me look at the second part of it with you. They are coming up to find this land, to take over this land, and they run into a priest. And they ask him, what are you doing? Why are you here? You seem like you should be somewhere else, serving the Lord in Shiloh, or somewhere else where God has commanded. Why have you found yourself here? And he's working for the house of Micah. He's trying to make some extra money. Sometimes people think that's what it was about. He just was trying to find a way to earn some extra income. Maybe you've heard the joke about the guy who he had his wife passed away, and after his wife passed away, his dog passed away. And he went to the Catholic priest and he said, sir, my wife's already buried here, and so I'd like to bury my dog here in the cemetery connected to the Catholic Church. Is that okay? He said, no, sir, we can't bury your dog for you, but if you go down the road to the non-denominational church, they'll bury your dog for you. And so he said, well, that's sad. I really wanted my dog buried next to my wife. I don't know what I'm going to do now with the money. And the Roman priest said, well, what do you mean? What money? And my wife said, well, after you bury the dog, I want you to give $50,000 to the church where you bury the dog. And the priest goes, well, sir, why didn't you mention that your dog was Roman Catholic, right? So corruption comes into the church, right? Perhaps, I know that's okay. Hey. It's the way that they were earning money. Okay, so maybe that's what's happening with this priest. Maybe he's just trying to earn money. He's working for Micah. He has a nice way of being cared for. So they go on, these 600 men, tribe of Dan, they leave the coast, they come up to this place, and we see them have this interaction with Micah's house. They go in verse 18, they take the carven images, they take the ephod, which is a vest that the Levi priest would have had, representing the 12 tribes, the metal image, and the priest says to them, what are you doing here? The priest asks, what are you doing? And they just said, keep quiet. Put your hand over your mouth and come with us, right? Come with us and father us and be a priest to us. Is it better for you to be a priest to the house of one man, for Micah, or is it better for you to be a priest at a tribe, for a clan of Israel? And the priest's heart was glad, verse 20. He's like, whoa, promotion, right? I'm going to go with you and be a priest for a whole clan. And so here's a priest even who already is outside. He should have known. He should have known how to act, where they should live, all these kind of things. But he says, sure, I'll go with you. Sounds great. Thanks for the promotion. He took the ephod and the household gods and the carven images, and he went along with the people. They departed, and they come up to this land. They have Micah with them. I think it's interesting to see how the tribe of Dan, they continually kind of do what I think is easier for them. They found this priest along the way. Hey, that's easy. You come with us, right? And even the priest kind of takes an easy path with them. Then if you're reading it, as they go on this conquest, they put their women and their livestock in front of them, right? That seems a little bit backwards, right? Men should go first and fight, but they're like, hey, all the kids, children, and women and livestock, you get in front of us and we'll be behind you. And then they come up to this unsuspecting people up here. So again, I'm pointing this out to say the downward spiral was happening way back in Judges, and back in this time period where they're finding easier land to work with. The downward spiral begins. Now let me fast forward. Okay, let's fast forward and past the Judges. Now we have a united kingdom under King David and King Solomon. It's a time of peace. The temple is built. The first temple is built in Jerusalem. So no longer is it a tabernacle that existed in Shiloh. Remember, the tabernacle is the place where they could meet with God. It was very specific on how it was supposed to be even decorated, where it would be placed, how big it would be. So also with the temple then is built. David wanted to build it. He wasn't allowed to. Solomon then was allowed to build it. Solomon built the temple in Jerusalem, some years of peace, and then all of a sudden the kingdom divides. And this is a key part of biblical history. You have Jeroboam and Rehoboam who divide the kingdom, and then all sorts of kings and things that happen after that. Many of them doing what was wrong in the eyes of God. Some of them doing what was right in the eyes of God, but most of them doing what was wrong. And so you have in the northern kingdom, the kings of Israel here, Jeroboam, and then in the southern kingdom, you have Rehoboam. And that's where we're now going to continue to build on this idea of the northern tribe going on their downward spiral of disobedience to God. So the Judges happened, they're kind of finding a lazier path, they come up here, it's a beautiful place, they got their own priest, life seems good. United kingdom, divided kingdom, now Jeroboam's ruling, and we're going to join him in 1 Kings chapter 12 and see what happens here. Jeroboam then, he doesn't like Rehoboam. He doesn't want anybody to go back and have any loyalty to the south. He's trying really hard to keep things divided. It's only going to get worse from here, but he's going to try and make sure that the loyalty is to the north. And one of the ways that he's going to do that is, being the religious nation that they are, he's going to try to make sure that their loyalty stays to the God of the north. The God, we know God is over all things, right, over both kingdoms, but he's kind of saying, hey, you don't need to go to the south anymore to worship. You don't have to go to Jerusalem to go worship. We know the temple's already been established. You don't have to go there. I'll figure out an easier way for you. Do you see the pattern here, right? These people continued to look for an easier way, a more convenient way to worship the Lord. So he decides that he's going to set up two places for worship so that they don't have any excuse in the northern kingdom on why they would have to go all the way back to Jerusalem. He's going to set up a place north and south for them to worship. Let me read this passage to you. Jeroboam built Shechem in the hill country of Ephraim and lived there, and he went out from there and built Penuel. And Jeroboam said in his heart, now the kingdom will turn back to the house of David if these people go up and offer sacrifices in the temple of the Lord of Jerusalem. And the heart of this people will turn to their Lord and to Rehoboam, king of Judah, and they will kill me and return to Rehoboam, king of Judah. He's saying if they go back over there, they're going to find loyalty with him. They're going to worship him, worship God, but also worship him, follow him. And I don't want that. They'll kill me. So the king took counsel and made 2 calves of gold. And he said to the people, you've gone up to Jerusalem long enough. Behold your gods, O Israel, who brought you up from the land of Egypt. And he set up one in Bethel and the other one in Dan. So if you were to look at a map and understand the territories, you have the southern kingdom and the northern kingdom. And what he's doing, this is a map of the 12 tribes, but imagine now it's just split into 2, right? He's going to set up one place down in Bethel, and he's going to set one place up in Dan, so that no longer do they have to go down to Jerusalem to worship or to be a part of the temple. So imagine if I cut the map in half, you have the northern kingdom. He's going to put one place, one golden calf, one place of worship at the southernmost part of the territory that's the northern kingdom, and he's going to put one at the northernmost part of the northern territory. And he's going to say, you don't have to go. Now look at how convenient I've made it for you. You can go to either one of these places and you can be able to worship God, and you don't have to go to Jerusalem. So why the golden calves? I got to be honest with you, I'm still trying to understand why the golden calves. It says, where is it? It's in 1 Kings, it's 12:28. He said, it's too much for you to go up to Jerusalem. Behold your gods, O Israel, that brought you up from the land of Egypt. So I think the golden calves go back to how they came from a culture where there were so many different gods that were worshipped, all sorts of gods that were worshipped in Egypt with golden calves and things like that. So it was a way to worship God. They would set up a golden calf. It's not necessarily that they were worshiping the golden calf. It was setting up saying, hey, this is a symbol of our God's power, a worship to our God's power. It seems odd, right? But that's what they were doing, and that's why he used those calves. Still, Dan and I were talking about on the bus, getting a reminder on why the golden calf, why a calf specifically. It's hard to understand, but it was a way that they worshiped their God. So he sets up these calves, one in Bethel on the way to Jerusalem, so you don't have to even go past that point, and one in Dan, so that they could just kind of stay up here. In addition to the alternative places of worship, he also has this alternative priesthood that he kind of sets up, maybe building upon that priest that was stolen earlier from Micah, the tribe of Micah. He says, hey, I got a different priesthood. You can trust them. And not only that, I'm going to have different high holidays. They were told, for example, to celebrate in the 7th month. But he says, hey, why don't we do it in the 8th month? You can read about that in verses 31 and 32. So he even is changing the calendar that God had put out. So you can see, again, the spiral happens. But I want you to note something. The spiral of them being disobedient to the Lord, it happens generations before or long before in Judges. It happens with their ancestors, happens with grandmas, great-grandmas, things like that. But it happens with these people as they're continually making little decisions to walk away from what the Lord had told them to do. Things related to dates, things related to how they worship. And so they come to this place now to worship. No longer are we going to go to Jerusalem to worship. So let me explain this place to you, and that'll put you in a little bit of context for you. This is one of the largest altar sites that we've found. This is a large podium that you're looking at here. Obviously the metal wasn't there, okay? It's not ancient metal. So it's a large podium that's there. And you can see the horns that are on the top, these little peak things. Those are there because they found a horn here in this place. It's in the Israel Museum, but there would have been a large altar. The best guess is it's that size because we can see the remaining stones that are here. Another example of a small step of disobedience. These stones are nice, right? They've cut them, they look nice. Well, they're told not to cut the stones that are a part of the altar. So you can see all the cut stones around there. He thought, hey, it doesn't matter. It's like every little thing that he did, he was just saying, you don't have to be like them. You don't have to do that. Look at how much better what I'm setting up for you. Jeroboam's saying that. Look at how much better what I'm setting up for you is than what you have to go be a part of in Jerusalem. So these cut stones that are part of the altar, this altar would have been large here. There would have been a drainage port that take the blood down and they could splash the blood upon themselves. The blood and all the sacrificing would have been done here. I want to show you something. Over here is the stairs, these stairs that would have led up to the altar. So there's stairs here that are cut, and these would have led up to the altar. Well, even in the Levitical law, it says you shall not have stairs that lead up to the altar. You're supposed to have a ramp, right? So even here is an idea of how he was trying to make things more convenient. It's not about a ramp, it's about stairs. Well, God was very clear. I want a ramp. I don't want stairs. I don't want your male parts being shown to my altar, right? I don't want those exposed to my altar. I want you to use a ramp instead. So even in the stairs that are there, in the cut stones, and all of these things, they did almost, maybe I'll say it this way. It was like every little thing was a turning of the face, or maybe a more vulgar way to say it is a flip of the middle finger towards maybe some of the things they were commanded to do, or the things they could experience if they did it the right way in the southern kingdom and in Jerusalem. So just continual disobedience, continual disobedience. Now, this is the sacrificial area. This is where they would have made the sacrifices, but right behind you is where the golden calf would have sat. So right up there on the platform, you can walk up there as soon as we're done, that's where the golden calf would have sat. And that golden calf and what represented for them worship to God, that would have been looking down at what sacrifices would have been made down here. So that's what you're experiencing here. You're literally in this sacrificial area. Let me drive it home a little bit. I want to point out that the human spirit, my spirit, your spirit, their spirit, before we're too quick to judge, we should bring it back to ourselves. We often will find the easiest path, right? We often will do what makes most sense to us for our flesh, what's convenient for us, right? The human spirit is so about appeasing itself. And that's why we desperately need a Savior who will save us, right? We desperately need a God who comes in and says, put off the old man, put on the new man. Your old man wants to make provisions for the flesh. Your new man has been provided by the truth of Jesus Christ, the sacrificial lamb who was sacrificed for us. So here at Tel Dan, in this luxurious place, far more luxurious than going to Jerusalem, they were able to have the God of convenience that they had created, or to worship the God in an area of convenience they thought would be better suited for them. They substituted priests, they substituted feasts, they substituted places, and all of this was outside the will of God. But every single thing was this slow pathway to appeasing their flesh or making it more convenient, and therefore not pleasing God. It's easy to tie this to our own life, isn't it? In sin and the things that happen in our life, it's so often this slow, continual process, this slow fade, this slowly saying, well, that's not so bad. Well, that's not so bad. Well, I'm okay here. And we make provisions for our flesh and we compromise the will of God. We do this in our sin all the time. And we're told not to. The call of those of us who have put our faith in Jesus Christ is to know that He's made us new. He's made us new creations. And so we obey Him. We follow Him in the smallest way because we love Him, or because we have been so deeply loved. In the smallest things we try to strive for obedience. The Christian life is about having a long faithfulness in the same direction. In the little things, paying attention. How am I worshiping the Lord? Am I being faithful? Am I being faithful time and again? These people, they made it very clear to us that they were all about pleasing themselves more than it was about pleasing God. And may it never be for us. The truth is that the world, the flesh, the devil will always find a way to tempt you. And to use Jeroboam's words, it's too much for you to go up to Jerusalem. That's what the enemy will say. It's too much for you to obey God. Not so. Sin always, always, always will provide a substitute for what God's will is for our life. Sin will always come in and say, this is more convenient for you. This is more attractive for you. Do this instead of that. And it should be our desire to say, no, 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 I won't do this instead of that. I will do whatever I can to obey my Father. I have been so deeply loved. And because I have been so deeply loved, I will be as faithful as I can in the big things and also in the little things. And I will not have a slow fade in my life. So that's what we can learn from this site. I think it's a powerful site. I think you see here kind of a representation of the Bema seat, the final seat of judgment in a physical way, what would have happened in the Old Testament, and the way they would have had this judgment place, or the God looking down on the sacrifices. So also we know our God sits upon the Bema seat. He's the ultimate, right? He's the ultimate judge, and we worship Him.